Chapter 1. Clara, about this disaster coverage in Country M, I was thinking. It was the third time Susan had called Clara Sinclair, and each time, the conversation inevitably circled back to this topic. But I had promised Felix Fletcher I would no longer put myself in harm's way. So I'd long since retired from the front lines of disaster journalism, mostly doing behind-the-scenes work these days. That's why Big S could only bring it up tentatively, hoping for a breakthrough. Big S, I'll go. The voice on the other end of the line fell silent. A moment later, Susan's excited voice erupted. Great, 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 I'll submit your name right away. The answer was certainly unexpected. After hanging up, however, I stared blankly out the window, watching Felix give all his tenderness to another girl. I lifted my hand to the glass, as if I could gently caress Felix's cool face. Just last month, we could sit together, talking and laughing. Now, I could only watch through a window as he smiled and chatted with another woman. If I counted carefully, this was my 15th year in the Fletcher household. When I was 5, my parents became volunteers for flood relief efforts. Unfortunately, the floodwaters came too swiftly. After rescuing a couple, my parents were swept away by a wave and were never seen again. From that day on, my sister and I became orphans. And the couple they had rescued were Felix Fletcher's parents. Grateful to my parents, they took me in, with the understanding that I would one day marry their eldest son, Frederick Fletcher. My younger sister, Ivy Sinclair, was adopted by Felix's uncle, Arthur Fletcher, and had been living abroad since her 3rd year of middle school. But good times don't last. Frederick passed away from an illness. Over the years, perhaps because Felix felt sorry for me, he kept me by his side, looking after me day after day. After I came of age, I followed in my parents' footsteps and became a renowned disaster journalist, often traveling to the front lines. Every time, Felix would be unable to rest easy and would accompany me, staying by my side, never leaving me for a moment. Once, at the scene of an earthquake, a building collapsed. A nearby tree trunk was about to crash down on me when Felix, with lightning-fast reflexes, shoved me out of the way. He ended up with a broken leg. That was the first time I had ever felt what it was like to be protected by someone with their own life. The pain of setting the bone made Felix's face turn deathly pale, but he still smiled and ruffled my hair. "Don't be afraid," he said softly. "I'm here." A young girl's heart began to bloom. I finally understood that the love so often written about in books was this kind of wondrous feeling. After that close call, I promised Felix I would stop being a disaster journalist and moved into a behind-the-scenes role. Until last month at a party. Felix, drunk, was lying on the sofa, his cheeks flushed. I was carefully wiping his face with a hot towel. With a sweep of his long arm, I lost my balance and tumbled onto him. Seeing the man I thought of day and night looking at me with such tender affection, I uncontrollably uttered the words, "I like you." That sentence seemed to sober Felix up instantly. He shoved me away, his voice laced with anger. "You're my brother's fiancé, but I only ever saw him as a brother, and he's gone now." "Even if he's dead, you are still his fiancé that will never change." Felix scrambled off the sofa, leaving me with nothing but his cold, retreating back. After that confession, I felt the distance between us grow wider and wider, until Ivy returned to the country, and Felix grandly announced she was his girlfriend. Listening to Felix recount the love story between him and Ivy, I finally understood. That drunken night, the person he was looking at with such affection wasn't me, but my sister, Ivy Sinclair. My thoughts returned to the present. I gave a self-deprecating smile and, out of habit, sat in the living room waiting for Felix to come home. Ever since my parents passed away, I hated being home alone. Felix, being thoughtful, would always return on the same day, no matter where he went on business, just to put my mind at ease. But I waited until the early hours of the morning, only for him to return just to pick something up. The moment he saw me, the smile on his face instantly turned to ice. "Don't wait up anymore. The only one I have ever loved is Ivy." The determination and certainty in his eyes made my stubbornness feel like the biggest joke. I opened my phone, wanting to capture the image of his retreating back, but instead, I saw a post on Ivy's social media feed. In the video, she and Felix were cutting a cake, their faces aglow with happiness. Today was my birthday, too, a day Felix had never forgotten. I turned off my phone, blew out the candles, and cut a slice of the melted cream cake, stuffing it into my mouth in big bites. The cake should have been cloyingly sweet, but in my mouth, it was an indescribable bitterness. This time, I really had to leave. Chapter 2. The next morning, I woke up dizzy and in a cold sweat, my head throbbing. I went to the medicine cabinet to find some pills, only to discover that the once fully stocked cabinet was now completely empty. All these years as a disaster journalist had left me with chronic migraines, a fact Felix knew well. He used to check the cabinet almost weekly, restocking whatever was missing, so I would never be without medicine when a headache struck. Staring at the empty shelves, I pulled out my phone, my fingers instinctively moving to dial Felix's number before I remembered Ivy's post from last night. Felix had thrown a lavish birthday party for Ivy. A photo of them kissing dominated my entire feed. I had casually liked it. A message from Felix popped up almost immediately. "Happy birthday. Something came up yesterday. I'll make it up to you next time. Don't trouble yourself, brother-in-law." I didn't need his belated wishes anymore. I threw on a coat and went out, intending to find a pharmacy. The headache was already making me dizzy, and wandering aimlessly under the bright sun made it worse. My vision went black and I collapsed. Felix stared at the words brother-in-law on his phone screen, an indescribable feeling churning in his gut. This wasn't the Clara he knew. He was about to call her when Ivy interrupted. "Felix, darling, does this look good?" Felix looked up and turned off his phone screen. A kind stranger on the street called an ambulance, and I was taken to the hospital. When I woke up, the sharp smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. "You're awake? We need to keep you for observation for a few days. Go handle the payment first." A nurse handed me a stack of papers. I took them numbly and, propping myself up, made my way to the payment window. I pulled out my phone, only to find the screen had been shattered in the fall. It was completely black, no matter how many times I pressed the button. I hadn't brought my wallet and fumbled through my pockets without finding a single dollar. I stood helplessly at the counter, feeling utterly mortified. "Miss, could you hurry up? There are people waiting behind you," the nurse at the window urged, making my face burn with shame. "Exactly, if you don't have money, why are you even seeing a doctor?" someone in the line behind me complained. Their words hit me hard, and my nose began to sting. I could only apologize and step aside. "You can go to the nurse's station and contact your family to come and pay." Next, family. I didn't have any family left. The only number I knew by heart was Felix's. I walked toward the hospital exit, feeling lost, each step unsteady. A sharp-eyed nurse recognized me and called out, "Miss Sinclair, where are you going?" "Where's your family?" Seeing that I wasn't responding, she helped me to a seat at the nurse's station. Worried I might collapse again if I left, the nurse dialed the emergency contact number I had mumbled while I was delirious. A short while later, a woman dressed as a professional caregiver approached the station. "Hello, is a Miss Clara Sinclair here?" I slowly looked up. "That's me, and you are?" "I'm the care aide sent by Mr. Felix Fletcher. I'll be looking after you for the next few days." I froze for a second. The outcome was somehow both surprising and expected. As I left with the care aide, I overheard the nurses at the station whispering, "What a scumbag. His own girlfriend is sick, and he doesn't even show up. SHH, stop it. Who knows what their relationship is?" When I called, I heard a girl in the background calling him darling. I instinctively closed my eyes, trying to weather another wave of sharp, dense pain in my heart, only to find that my heart was completely still. That's right. What was I to Felix? He only took care of me because of Frederick's dying wish. "Miss Sinclair, Mr. Fletcher is tied up with business and can't get away. I'll be with you during your hospital stay. Please let me know if you need anything." I nodded, staring blankly at the maple leaves falling outside the window. I remembered a time when I had merely cut my hand while cooking, and Felix had dropped everything, driving all the way back just to bandage my finger, his eyes full of concern as he scolded me for being clumsy. For days after, he wouldn't leave my side, even insisting on feeding me water himself before he could rest easy. That attentiveness had lasted for 5 whole years. But ever since my confession, Felix had been subtly avoiding me. The distance became even more pronounced after Ivy returned. I hadn't seen him at home in a long time. Even simple, daily greetings had vanished. The only thing I got when we met was a curt, "If you have something to say it quickly." I now felt that giving up on Felix was truly the right choice. In one more week, I would be gone for good. Chapter 3. During my days in the hospital, the large room was empty except for me and the busy figure of the care aide. Every time the aide saw my lonely expression, she would try to comfort me. "Mr. Fletcher still cares about you. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent me to look after you. He's just been too busy these past few days to get away." If this were the old me, I might have believed her. But I had seen Felix drop everything for me before. How could I believe these excuses now? But I didn't care anymore. Whether it was true or not, it no longer mattered. After being discharged, I went to a phone repair shop to get my shattered screen fixed. The moment it turned on, a constant chime of notifications began. There were hundreds of messages on my social apps and dozens of missed calls. I tapped open my social feed and saw that Ivy had posted many scenic photos over the past few days, interspersed with intimate shots of her and Felix. The caption read, "Beautiful scenery is meant to be shared with the one you love." I opened my chat with Felix. "Tied up with business these last few days. I'll come see you once things are settled. I specially selected the care aide for you so you can rest easy. How's your recovery? I'm still busy, sorry." I scrolled up and saw that the day of my confession was like a dividing line. Before that day, the white chat bubbles his messages dominated the screen, with only a few green ones from me. But after that day, the white bubbles grew fewer and fewer, eventually disappearing altogether, leaving only my lonely green messages on the screen. He used to love sharing his day with me. What he ate, what happened at work, which colleagues had an argument, how traffic made him upset. People often say that the desire to share is the best expression of love, so I treasured these chat logs. I wanted to find traces of Felix's love for me in them. No matter how many phones I went through, I saved these chat records without fail. But thinking about it now, I was probably just a substitute for my sister. At this thought, my slender fingers pressed the delete button on the screen. Looking at the now blank interface, I smiled with a sense of release. Back home, I took a hot bath, washing away all my fatigue. Lying on the soft, large bed, my eyelids grew heavy and I fell into a deep sleep. I don't know how much time passed, but the noisy sound of people moving things outside my door woke me. I rubbed my sleepy eyes and opened the door to see Felix standing there, tall and straight, directing workers who were moving luggage. When he saw me, his voice was stern. "Why didn't you tell me you were back? Why didn't you reply to my messages? Don't you know I'd be worried?" His last words were barely audible. I glanced at him coolly. That one look set off alarms in Felix's mind. He had never seen this version of me before, as if I were looking at a complete stranger. He suddenly missed the Clara from years ago, the one whose smile before him was as radiant as a blooming flower. It felt like a sunny day, now long past. "Ivy's place is being renovated for a few days, so I told her to move in here with us. You can clear out the room for her." I pursed my lips. "I'll clear out the master bedroom tonight." Felix hadn't expected me to agree so readily. "That's not what Before Felix could finish, his phone rang. His stern face instantly melted, a smile gracing his lips. "Ivy, I've arranged everything. Just waiting for you to come over." With a bang, the door shut. I stared blankly at the master bedroom next to Felix's room. I was leaving soon anyway. This was a good time to pack my things. I remembered when I first moved in, Felix had specially reserved this room for me. Now, it was time to return it to its true mistress. Just as I was about to go back to my room, the door opened and Felix's voice came through. "Ivy said she wants to try your cooking. You can make dinner tonight." He gave me no room to refuse. "Okay," I agreed readily. I would treat it as a repayment for the Fletcher family's kindness over the years. I would get my visa tomorrow, and in 3 more days, I could leave. It was a good opportunity to use tonight's dinner to tell them I was going to Country M. A sort of farewell. Chapter 4. I went to the market myself and bought a pile of groceries, every single item one of Felix's favorites. I remembered when he used to accompany me on reporting trips. The conditions were harsh, so we often ate instant noodles or other quick meals. Sometimes, we didn't even have that and had to settle for crackers soaked in water. But he never complained. He ate everything I prepared and even praised my cooking skills. To reward him for being with me, I would always cook a feast for him whenever we got home. Felix would eat until his mouth was greasy, still managing to tease me. "I don't like anyone's cooking but yours. You'll have to cook for me for the rest of my life." I would dab his mouth with a napkin, smiling as I agreed. Back then, my face was truly filled with happiness. But this time, I was breaking my promise. When I got home, the house was empty, with only the cold, bright lights left on. After I finished cooking, I sent a text. "Dinner's ready. Come back early, I have something to tell you." "Okay?" The food grew cold again and again, and I reheated it again and again. By 10 o'clock, there was still no sign of them. I opened my phone and sent Felix a message, asking when they would be back. Almost instantly, I received a voice message in reply. Ivy's sweet, chirpy voice came from the phone. "Sister, I'm so sorry. I told Felix I was craving Japanese food, so he brought me out to eat. You can have the food you made. We'll be back after we're done eating." Ivy quickly hit the delete button on the phone and put it back in its place, just as Felix returned from the restroom. "It's getting late, let's go back." "Felix, I'm in a bad mood today. I want to spend more time alone with you." Felix hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He sent a text to me. "Ivy's in a bad mood. We'll be back later." I turned off my phone screen and scraped all the food from the table into the trash can. I went back to my bedroom and started organizing my things. Looking at the mess on the floor, I realized that almost everything in this room had been bought for me by Felix. Very few things were truly mine. Then I found a box in the closet, covered in a thick layer of dust. Opening it, I found a few scattered photos inside, all of them of me and Felix as children. My gaze fell on a small teddy bear next to them. It was the first gift Felix had given me when I moved into the Fletcher home. Back then, Felix was short and very thin, so he was often bullied. But I was different. I was 2 years older than him, and girls developed faster than boys, so I seemed particularly tall. Mrs. Fletcher was always worried when she saw his tattered clothes. So, I started following Felix to and from school, protecting him. I even got into a fight for him once and ended up covered in scrapes. It's laughable to think about it now. Even Felix himself probably didn't know about it, but I didn't care anymore. Whether he knew or not, it no longer mattered. On the other end of the line, Felix stared blankly at the chat window that hadn't been replied to in a long time, feeling a little uneasy. Clara used to reply to his messages almost instantly. He felt that the Clara of late was like a butterfly, about to fly away. Chapter 5. For once, I had a good night's sleep. Waking up to the warm sunlight helped lift some of the gloom from my heart. I hailed a cab to the visa office and submitted the necessary documents for going abroad. After it was done, I strolled down the street, took out my phone, and booked a flight to Country M for 3 days from now. Watching the bustling crowds and the variety of shop signs, I realized I had never looked at my surroundings so carefully before. I didn't know when I would be back next. "Clara, over here," Josie Sullivan's voice pulled me back from my thoughts. We had planned to go shopping today to buy some things for my trip. Along the way, Josie asked me several times, "Are you really sure you want to leave?" I stirred the straw in my drink and nodded. I lowered my voice and asked tentatively, "Does Felix know about this?" I thought for a moment. The flight was paid for with a supplementary card. Felix should have received a notification on his phone. "Maybe," Josie gasped. "Oh my God, aren't you afraid he'll turn City H upside down looking for you? Have you forgotten that time you two had a fight and you ran away? You just went to Country A for a few days to cool off, and he went crazy looking for you." I gave a bitter smile and sipped my milk tea. "Don't worry, he won't this time." Josie saw my dejection and sighed softly. "He's the blind one." I froze for a second. So my little secret crush had been obvious to those around me all along. After buying my things, I went home and started packing my suitcase. Ring the phone rang. Felix's name flashing on the screen puzzled me. Felix's commanding tone came through the phone again. "Change into a gown, you're coming to a banquet with me later." "No, I'm busy." "Don't be difficult, this is an emergency." No matter what Felix said, I wouldn't budge until he said, "I'm begging you for this favor." Thinking of all the years Felix had taken care of me, I finally relented with a soft, In truth, ever since Frederick died, Felix rarely had me attend banquets. Because every time I went, people would repeatedly pick at my wounds under the guise of concern. To protect me from harm, Felix would always decline any invitations to banquets and similar events on my behalf. Soon, a message from Felix arrived, "Come downstairs." As soon as I got in the car, Ivy gave me a big hug. "Sister, thank you for agreeing to help me. Someone played a prank and sent me a threatening letter today. Felix was so worried about me that he asked you, my sister-in-law, to come to the banquet with me." Felix didn't dare to look me in the eye. "You and Ivy are sisters, and you look quite similar. It'll be a bit of a hassle, but please stick with Ivy today." So he wasn't afraid I would be in danger, only that Ivy might be taken. So this was the favor he was begging me for. This feeling, it was truly sickening. Felix glanced at me guiltily, only to see my expression was calm. In that instant, he realized that this girl had matured a lot in a short time. Chapter 6. Ivy giggled, clinging to Felix's arm coquettishly. "I knew you'd find a way to protect me. You'd never let me get hurt." I leaned against the car window, my eyes slightly closed. At the banquet, Felix told me to stick to Ivy like glue and protect her at all costs, ensuring nothing went wrong. I had seen that same panicked look on his face once before, when I had a high fever that wouldn't break. Times had changed. Now that the object of his concern was someone else, he didn't hesitate to push me forward as a shield. Perhaps he had some genuine feelings for me in the past, but genuine feelings could change in an instant. In the second, I was lost in thought. A man in black rushed forward and threw the contents of a glass bottle at Ivy. "Watch out, Clara, protect Ivy," Felix's voice rang out. It was an almost instinctive reaction as he reached out to block Ivy. Felix quickly took off his jacket and threw it over Ivy's face. The crowd erupted into chaos at the sight. A scream pierced the air, but it wasn't from Ivy. It was from me. Some of the liquid had splashed onto me, leaving a patch of burns. Within minutes, several blisters had formed. "Clara, are you okay?" Felix rushed toward me, his voice filled with concern. He had barely asked the question when Ivy pulled him away. "I'm so scared, so scared." He looked at me apologetically. "Clara, Ivy is really shaken up. I'm going to take her home first. I'll have Mr. Wallace drive you." Felix swept the trembling Ivy into his arms and carried her out of the banquet hall under the gaze of the crowd. By the time I came to my senses, all I could see were the taillights of his Porsche flashing in the night sky. I had twisted my ankle while dodging, so I had to take off my high heels and limp out of the villa complex to hail a taxi to the hospital. The doctor breathed a sigh of relief after the examination. Thankfully, it was just boiling water and not acid. Otherwise, that patch of skin might have been ruined. Popping the blisters was excruciatingly painful, but I gritted my teeth and didn't make a sound. Right now, I could only rely on myself. What was this pain in comparison? When I limped back home, I saw that the light was on in Felix's bedroom. As I went upstairs, ready to go to my room, I happened to hear Felix gently reading a story to Ivy, comforting her. "Don't be afraid, go to sleep now. I'll stay with you." I glanced at the two of them inside and went back to my room. I had just stepped out of the shower when I saw Felix sitting at the table, waiting for me. On a tray beside him were bandages and ointment. At that moment, I was only wearing a white shirt. Strands of hair on my forehead were still dripping water, my graceful figure faintly visible. The sight made the tips of Felix's ears turn red, but he maintained a stern expression. "I brought you some ointment." I dabbed the water from my hair and sat at my vanity, not giving Felix a single glance. "I don't need it." Seeing my cold expression, Felix felt a surge of irritation. He let out a cold snort and left. Just as the door was closing, my phone rang, making his steps falter slightly. "Big S, yes, I'll look at it in a bit. You're not a disaster journalist anymore. Why are you still in contact with Susan?" Felix turned around and questioned me. "She just asked me to help her edit a manuscript." Felix felt something was off. Susan had never contacted me after I quit disaster journalism. He wanted to ask more, but he heard Ivy's voice. "Felix," with a bang, the door was shut. I picked up the ointment from the table and threw it in the trash. His things, I didn't want them anymore. Chapter 7. In the early morning, I was still in a sleepy haze when a series of urgent knocks sounded at the door. When I opened it, Ivy's face appeared before me, startling me so much I staggered back a step. Ivy held out her hands, a pigeon egg-sized diamond ring glittering on her finger. She excitedly grabbed my hands, shaking them back and forth. "Sister Felix proposed to me. We can be a family again. I can't call you sister anymore. I'll have to call you sister-in-law from now on. You have to help me prepare for my wedding. I'm afraid I won't do a good job on my own." I was about to refuse when I heard Felix agree for me. Don't worry, she's your sister-in-law. She will definitely help you. Since my sister-in-law is going to help me with the wedding preparations, why don't you move in and stay with me? Ivy looked at me expectantly. Beside her, Felix's brow furrowed slightly. No. Felix's refusal stunned both me and Ivy. The smile on Ivy's face stiffened, but she quickly recovered, hugging Felix's arm and pouting. I know you can't bear to be apart from me, just let my sister-in-law stay with me for a couple of days. The two of them went back and forth, deciding my schedule in just a few sentences. Sorry, I have things to do these next 2 days. I can't help you. Apparently not expecting me to refuse, Felix blurted out almost instinctively, all your money comes from me, what could you possibly have too? He realized his mistake and quickly fell silent, looking at me. But there was no anger on my face. It's settled then, Felix said before leaving in a fluster, leaving the two of us staring at each other. Ivy's smile was gone, her eyes full of provocation as she looked at me. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking, but Felix is mine. I am his fiancée. Oh, I only see him as a brother. This remark was overheard by Felix, who had just returned. The hand he had on the doorknob finally dropped. Remembering my parents' dying wish, I agreed to help her with the wedding preparations, planning to get everything sorted out in these 2 days. As I was packing my luggage to move to Ivy's place, I received a message from Josie. I can't stand those two, showing off their love all day. First on their social feeds, then on Twitter. Who even writes handwritten love letters anymore in this day and age? Tusk. I had done the handwritten love letter thing, too, except my letters were never sent. They remained hidden at the bottom of a box, just like my earliest feelings for Felix, never to see the light of day. I opened Ivy's social media. There were several photos of the love letters with a sweet caption and a stream of blessings below. Soon, a trending topic shot to the top. Dancing starlet and business tycoon, fairytale love, perfect couple. Oh my god, this is too sweet. What kind of fairytale romance is this, Awa? I'm so jealous. The tycoon's handwriting is so delicate, it looks like a girl wrote it. That last comment caught my attention completely. Felix had specially practiced his calligraphy, his handwriting was strong and forceful. There was no way it could look like a girl's. I zoomed in on the photo. I realized these were the very love letters I had written to him. Every sweet word on them was carefully chosen by me, even the stationery was specially selected. I would recognize them even if they were turned to ash. I stormed out of my bedroom and confronted Felix, demanding loudly, "Why did you give her those letters? She saw them when she moved into the master bedroom. I didn't want to make her angry." He said it so casually, as if he were talking about something trivial. My last shred of dignity was torn away. My foolish love was laid bare for all to see. The last bit of gratitude I felt for the Fletcher family vanished completely. Chapter 8. I went back to my room to continue packing, only to find another trending topic had shot to the top. Tycoon engaged, where will the canary go soon? Related search terms appeared, with Felix's and my names at the top of the list. Many posts began to appear, with people claiming to be insiders, revealing little details about my relationship with Felix. So shameless. He already has a girlfriend and she's still mooching off his family. Right. Does she want to be his mistress or something? She has no shame. First the brother, now she wants the younger brother. How disgusting. I scrolled through these comments with a blank expression, took a screenshot, and sent it to Felix. I knew that even if he didn't care about me, he would care about the company and his own reputation. Besides, he wouldn't want Ivy to see this stuff. Sure enough, just a few minutes after I sent the message, the topic disappeared. Clicking on their names now only showed their professional achievements over the years. Nothing else. Ding, I opened my phone to see a new message from Felix. I promised my brother I'd take care of you, so don't worry. You can live in the Fletcher home for the rest of your life. I let out a cold laugh and turned off the screen. I had nothing to worry about. I was leaving in 2 days anyway. As for being taken care of, I didn't need that anymore. Taking care of myself was just fine. My belongings fit into a single suitcase, the rest I put into bags to be thrown away. As I was carrying them downstairs, I ran into Felix coming down. You're only staying there for a few days. Do you need this much stuff? I'm getting ready to leave, so I'm throwing it away. The zipper wasn't fully closed, and the edges of a few items of clothing peeked out. Felix recognized them. They were clothes he had bought for me, some of my favorites. She was just going to Ivy's for a couple of days. Why did he have this persistent feeling of unease? Felix, I'm here to pick up my sister. Where are you going? Ivy's voice interrupted Felix's question. She ran up, linking her arm with his, her smiling eyes impossibly charming. Felix's lips naturally curved into a smile as he pinched her cheek. As dusk fell, Felix, worried about two girls going back alone, had them stay at the house one more night, telling them to move the next day. The next morning, Ivy dragged me out of the house under the pretense of wedding preparations. I didn't suspect a thing until we arrived at a coffee shop and I started to feel something was strange. Here, a strange man in the distance waved at Ivy. She led me over to his table and we sat down. This is my friend, Vincent Young, and this is the sister I told you about, Clara Sinclair. My sister is a great beauty. You're a lucky guy. In just a few short sentences, I caught the undertone. Ivy had brought me here for a blind date. I ignored the man's outstretched hand, grabbed my bag, and left in a fury. Back at the house, I grabbed my already packed suitcase, placed the key on the table, and walked out without a backward glance. I bought a bouquet of yellow chrysanthemums and went to my parents' graves for a final farewell. Mom, Dad, I'm leaving. I changed my flight and sat in the departure lounge, waiting for the announcement on the big screen. My phone rang. I opened it to find a message from Felix. How could you just leave Ivy alone like that? I started typing, my vision blurring. A tear dripped onto the screen, creating a ripple. I wasn't crying for Felix. I was crying for my own presumptions, for my unrequited feelings, for my indecisiveness, for my own foolishness. In the end, I only sent 2 words, take care. The airport announcement sounded. Passengers for the flight to Country M, please proceed to Gate 5 for boarding. I blocked Felix and changed my emergency contact. My new life was just beginning. Chapter 9. The moment Felix's phone rang, Ivy's gaze followed his. The photo of their childhood selves on the screen was particularly jarring, and the name, Yao Yao, sparked a flash of jealousy in her eyes. The words, take care, appeared on the screen, and the gloom in her heart instantly vanished. That nuisance, Clara Sinclair, was finally gone. Felix walked in, just in time to see the smile Ivy hadn't managed to hide. Who was that? Give me the phone. She was about to delete the chat history, but his voice made her hands tremble. The phone's screen was still lit up. Seeing Felix about to bend down and pick it up, she rushed forward and threw herself into his arms, sobbing quietly. Felix, how could my sister-in-law do this to me? The tip of her high heel stomped on the screen, shattering it instantly into a dark, cracked mess. I didn't mean to. Felix stared at Ivy coldly. He had a feeling she was hiding something from him. Who sent that message just now? I didn't see clearly. It was probably just a spam text. Felix nodded and handed the phone to his assistant, telling him to get it fixed and returned as soon as possible. Has Clara Sinclair come to see you? No. Since my sister-in-law is gone, why don't you help me with the wedding preparations? Ivy smiled sweetly and moved closer to Felix, trying to take his hand, but he subtly avoided her touch. You can decide on your own. He took out his assistant's phone, quickly typed out a message, and sent it. Where are you? Ivy is still waiting for you. He stared at the phone screen, lost in thought. Every second felt like an eternity. The uneasy feeling in his heart gradually spread, his heart pounding in his chest. But this is our wedding. This wedding is just my way of repaying you for saving me when we were children. The coldness in his eyes stung her deeply, but she still forced a smile and said coquettishly, It's because my sister-in-law left me all alone. I'll ask you one more time. What did you do to Yao Yao? He knew Clara's temperament. Although she could be a bit temperamental, she wouldn't just abandon Ivy on the street. Felix's questioning tone made Ivy jump, and she blurted out instinctively. I just saw that she was lonely and introduced her to a boyfriend. Seeing Felix's face grow darker, her voice gradually weakened, the word boyfriend barely audible. Felix threw the file in his hand onto the table and stared at Ivy coldly. He had never looked at her like this before. Her delicate face turned pale with fear, but she still gritted her teeth and argued, I was just trying to do something nice for her. Remembering how he had just accused Clara without knowing the facts, a flash of panic crossed his eyes. Felix ignored her words, threw on his coat, and stormed out the door. Watching his hurried retreat, Ivy stomped her foot in a fit of jealousy. Chapter 10. He got into the car, constantly urging the driver to go faster. He expertly dialed a number on his phone. He desperately wanted to hear Clara's voice, as if only that could calm his agitated heart. But the only response was a cold female voice. "Sorry, the number you have dialed is switched off." He tried again and again, refusing to give up, but the voice he longed to hear never came. He leaned against the window in despair. Suddenly, he remembered the image of Clara coming downstairs with all her bags that day. She had said she was getting ready to leave. Felix whispered those words to himself, and a wave of fear washed over him. No, it couldn't be. Apart from him and Ivy, Clara had no other family in City H. She couldn't leave him. But the cold sweat breaking out on his palms betrayed his inner turmoil. As they neared the villa, they hit a sudden traffic jam caused by an accident up ahead. The cars in front of them were at a standstill. Unwilling to endure the torment in his heart, Felix pushed open the car door and ran towards the villa complex. By the time he arrived, his shirt was soaked with sweat. He panted, looking at the light shining from the living room window, a smile tugging at his lips. He pushed open the door and called out into the house. "Clara, why didn't you?" The dim yellow light illuminated every corner of the house, but it couldn't illuminate Clara's figure. Usually, Clara would be curled up on the sofa, sleepy-eyed, waiting for him to come home. But now, the leather sofa was perfectly smooth, without a single wrinkle. It was obvious no one had sat there for a long time. In the vast villa, apart from his own panting, there was no other sound. Thump, thump. He couldn't tell if it was the sound of his footsteps on the stairs or his own heartbeat. He gripped the handle of the guest bedroom door, cold sweat beading on his forehead. He was afraid of this door, feeling as if opening it would mean the end of everything. Just as he hesitated, his assistant's voice rang out, "Mr. Fletcher, the phone is fixed." He let out a sigh of relief and hurried downstairs to take the phone and unlock it. Messages from Ivy were still popping up, but his finger hovered over the pinned chat at the top. The words, "Take care," were like a giant boulder, pressing down on his chest, making it hard for him to breathe. With trembling hands, he typed on the keyboard. It took him 4 or 5 tries just to type, "Where are you?" The moment he hit send, a red exclamation mark appeared, making his eyes sting with a crimson glare. He threw the phone down like a madman and rushed upstairs, pushing open the door. Seeing the dim room, the feeling of fear washed over him again. It was too clean. The white light flickered on, illuminating a meticulously arranged room. Apart from the necessary furniture, there was not a single trace of Clara. The once cluttered vanity was now empty except for a single key. He felt his heart skip a beat. He carefully picked up the key, and the moment he saw the character, Yao, carved on it, it was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. He had carved that character himself when he was learning seal carving. Although it was a bit crooked, Clara had been thrilled for a long time. She said it was hers alone, one of a kind. He continued to search, trying to find any sign that Clara was still there. With every cabinet he opened, his heart sank a little deeper into despair, until he found a dusty box in the corner of the closet. He hastily opened it and saw the little teddy bear inside, freezing on the spot. Find out where Clara Sinclair is. He felt his nose begin to sting, and his vision blurred. He wiped his face messily with his sleeve and murmured, "She's just angry with me." Yes, that must be it. Didn't she run away in a huff before? She's so naughty, always trying to scare people. When she comes back, I'll have to teach her a good lesson. He sat on the edge of the bed, still holding the childhood photo of them, his voice growing more choked with emotion. It was the first time the assistant had seen Felix so distraught. He softened his tone. "Mr. Fletcher, Miss Sinclair booked a flight to Country M for today 3 days ago. This is the flight number." Hearing this, Felix rushed downstairs, got into the car, and slammed the accelerator as if he wanted to push it through the floor. On the way, his phone kept ringing. He glanced at it and saw the name Ivy Sin, and a flicker of hope rose in his heart. He answered the call, and Ivy's soft voice came through, "Felix, we'll talk later." A second later, the line went dead. Chapter 11. Arriving at the airport, Felix rushed into the terminal, searching everywhere for Clara's figure. "Passengers for flight MU 713, please proceed to gate 5 for boarding." Felix took out his phone and carefully compared it with the airport's departures screen. It was indeed Clara's flight number. Thank God, he was still in time. A glimmer of hope ignited in his heart as he pushed through the crowded terminal, running as fast as he could. If he was just a little bit faster, he could definitely make it. Perhaps it was a stroke of luck from heaven, but he finally saw that familiar figure. Clara Sinclair. At that moment, Clara was in line to board. Hearing someone call her name, she instinctively turned around. She saw Felix at the end of the line, panting, his face a mask of fury. Her steps faltered. Seeing Felix, his head covered in sweat, not far away, she raised her lips into a smile, waved, and her lips moved silently. Goodbye. Then she turned around, not looking at him again. That smile sent a wave of fear through Felix's heart. He frantically pushed through the crowd, trying to grab her hand. Clara Sinclair, where are you going? Can you stop throwing a tantrum and come home with me? He kept shouting, but Clara's hand, handing over her ticket, didn't hesitate for a second. By the time he pushed his way to the front, she had already gone through. Clara Sinclair, he yelled her name, but she didn't stop. Sir, please cooperate with our staff. Please leave, a staff member said, blocking his way. The disapproving murmurs of the people around him grew louder, but he couldn't hear them. He just stared, lost, at Clara's retreating back. His eyes glazed over as he returned to the villa and sat on the sofa, looking at the empty house. He rubbed his furrowed brow, his temples throbbing. He called out habitually, Clara, my head hurts. But the only response was his own echo. He went upstairs in a daze and found himself drawn to the master bedroom where Clara had once stayed. He pushed open the door and found it had long been cleaned out. He sat on the bed, staring into space. Suddenly, he remembered something, crawled under the bed, and sure enough, found a notebook. Clara had a habit of hiding her secret things on the bed frame. Those love letters had been discovered by Ivy because they had accidentally slipped down. He opened it. It was a detailed record of their daily life together over the years. Towards the end, it was only about what Clara did each day. Felix's name was nowhere to be found. Until the last page, which read, Goodbye, Felix. The date was 3 days ago, the day she was discharged from the hospital. So she had already decided to leave him then, but he had never noticed. She had clearly told him to come back early, that she had something to tell him. He had clearly noticed that she was acting strangely. He slammed his fist on the floor. Suddenly, he remembered the phone call Clara had received a few days ago and the destination of her flight. He quickly opened his phone and started searching. Sure enough, an earthquake had struck Country M, and these few days were the tail end of the disaster. He opened his contacts and scrolled through, his heart in turmoil. He was afraid of being disappointed again, but he was even more afraid that Clara had truly left. After much hesitation, he finally pressed the call button. Hello, who is this? Susan's voice made Felix's heart sink. His voice trembled slightly as he asked, Big S, is Clara with you? No, she's not. At those words, Felix's phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a thud. She doesn't land until tomorrow morning. I'll send someone too. He quickly picked up the phone and interrupted. Where are you guys? Susan soon sent him the location of their temporary base in Country M. Book me the earliest flight to Country M, but you have a meeting with Miss Ivy's family tomorrow. The assistant said cautiously, but was cut off by Felix's sharp reprimand. I said, book the ticket. Chapter 12. Sorry, something came up and I have to go on a business trip. We can discuss the wedding with Uncle another time. Felix quickly typed out the message and sent it. He then began to pack for Country M. Seeing the diary on the bed, he hesitated for a moment before putting it in his suitcase. When Ivy received the message, her hand holding the phone tightened, and her delicate features twisted into a snarl. She knew that business trip was just an excuse. He was going to find Clara Sinclair. Why was Clara Sinclair still haunting him even after she had left, but she could only pretend to be considerate and reply, It's okay, you take care of your work first. After that message was sent, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. She never received another reply from Felix. On the plane, Felix read the diary over and over again. Today, I cooked a whole table of food. He said he wanted to eat it for the rest of his life. I want to cook for him for the rest of my life too. Today, I finally mustered up the courage to confess, but I was rejected. It's okay, as long as I can be with him. He has someone he loves now. I should give up. Felix remembered every single one of these events. At the time, he really thought Clara would be by his side forever until she confessed to him. She was his brother's fiancée. This relationship was bound to face countless obstacles. He was afraid of a single misstep leading them into an abyss from which there was no return. He didn't dare to gamble. Coincidentally, Ivy returned to the country, saying that her adoptive father, Arthur, had cancer and might not have long to live. His only wish was to see her married. She used the fact that he had saved her life as a child as leverage, asking him to enter into a sham marriage with her. Felix thought it was a perfect solution. Not only would it repay his debt to Ivy, but it would also ease the awkwardness with Clara. So he agreed. Sure enough, after he publicly announced Ivy as his girlfriend, the online speculation about the two of them dwindled and eventually disappeared. He thought this was a way to protect Clara as well. Even if someone questioned it, he could openly say it was to fulfill his brother's last wish. This way, Clara could stay by his side peacefully for the rest of her life. But he forgot that Clara was never a canary to be kept in a cage. Her parents died young, and she was raised in the Fletcher household, so she was naturally aloof and solitary, preferring to stay in her own world. Over the years, she was polite to everyone, but always maintained a cool distance, never truly opening her heart to anyone. Only in front of his mother would she show a rare smile. It was this Clara who had developed feelings for him and bared her soul. She had cast aside her pride, unafraid of the world's judgment, and said, "I like you." How he wanted to kiss her then, to respond to her confession with his own passion. But he had retreated. He had considered the opinions of others, the online slander, the shackles of morality, but he had forgotten to consider Clara. So he became more and more resistant, more and more afraid of his feelings being exposed, constantly keeping his distance, deliberately alienating and ignoring her. Finally, she let go of this love and she let go of him, but now he regretted it. Chapter 13. This chapter is a duplicate of Chapter 12 in the original text and has been omitted. Chapter 14. After the plane landed, Felix quickly found the temporary base according to the address Susan had sent. He stood outside the door, watching the few people bustling inside, hesitating to step in. It was a young woman who noticed him and asked, "Hello, who are you looking for?" Felix's lips twitched. He forced himself to answer, "Is Clara Sinclair here?" As he spoke, his eyes darted around the room, but he couldn't find that familiar figure. "Teacher Clara is out on an interview. You can come in and wait for her." "No. That's okay." Hearing that Clara wasn't there, he felt a strange sense of relief, as if things would somehow work out if he just kept avoiding it. He turned to leave and ran right into Susan, who was just returning. Big S. Susan, who had been smiling and chatting with the person next to her, immediately straightened up, her smile vanishing as she stared at Felix. Remembering that Clara was out on an interview, she let out a cold snort. "Follow me." Susan took him to a corner coffee shop, her brow furrowed as she looked at him. His face was covered in stubble, and dark circles under his eyes proved he hadn't slept all night. The once spirited young man was now hunched over, his eyes glazed as he looked at her. "What are you doing here?" Susan asked first, her tone full of disdain. Felix stammered, I came to find Yao Yao. When Clara changed careers for you, I tried to talk her out of it, but she's stubborn and wouldn't listen. There was nothing I could do. I brought Clara up myself. She's like my own daughter. I won't let you hurt her again. Mr. Fletcher, you should go back soon, before your fiancé gets worried. Felix instinctively wanted to argue, but in the end, all he could manage was, "I'm sorry." Seeing his humbled state, some of Susan's frustration dissipated. "Do you love Clara or not?" Felix looked guiltily at the coffee in front of him, unable to answer. He was holding back, restraining himself from confessing this love that defied social norms. For years, he had regretted it day and night. If only he had been more persistent back then. When the Fletchers adopted Clara, they intended for her to marry one of their sons when she came of age, but they hadn't decided which one. His parents knew he was always following Clara around, but Frederick was the eldest son. It wasn't proper for the younger son to be engaged before the elder. So they called Felix in and asked tentatively, "Felix, how would you feel about Clara being your sister-in-law one day?" Even though Felix was young, he knew what sister-in-law meant. He didn't want Clara to be his brother's wife. He liked Clara. "No, I want her to be my wife." His parents sighed helplessly and deliberated for 2 whole days before finally agreeing to his request. Felix was overjoyed at the news, jumping up and down and shouting, "I have a wife, I have a wife." He rushed into the yard to tell Clara the news. But then he heard Josie's childish voice. "Clara, do you like Frederick or Felix?" Felix hid behind the bushes, eagerly awaiting Clara's answer. "Of course it's Big Brother. That bastard Felix only bullies me. I don't like him at all." At her words, the light in Felix's eyes gradually dimmed. He returned to his parents with a long face and mumbled, "I don't like Clara Sinclair anymore. Let her marry Big Brother." They scolded him angrily. "Nonsense, do you think this is a game of house?" But Felix ran out, crying and shouting, "I won't marry her, I won't," and so, Clara became his older brother's fiancée. After his brother's death, he had asked Felix to take care of Clara. He used this as an excuse to move Clara into his house, spending every day by her side. They were almost inseparable. Everyone said it was a deep brotherly bond. Only he knew his own sordid private thoughts. He wondered if he had been more stubborn back then, would things be different now? Chapter 15. "Big S, could you give me Clara's phone number?" he asked with a choked voice, his eyes pleading. Seeing his desolate state, Susan felt a pang of sympathy, but thinking of his engagement, she could only shake her head helplessly. "If you really care about her, don't look for her anymore." Felix felt as if he had been struck by lightning, frozen in place. He managed a numb "thank you" and left. She watched his dejected figure retreat and sighed. When it comes to matters of the heart, the ones involved are always lost, while the onlookers see clearly. She hoped they would both see the truth one day. She picked up her bag and returned to the base. When Clara saw her return, she excitedly approached her with a camera. "Big S, look at what we shot today." Susan forced a smile and took the camera, praising her work. It had been a long time since she had seen such a cheerful and positive Clara. "Clara, Sebastian, look at this set of photos I took today." Just as Susan's voice started, Clara had already moved over to Sebastian Sullivan with her camera. "Big S, did you call me?" Seeing the two of them smiling at each other, she swallowed the rest of her sentence, only managing a, "It's nothing." She had a new life now. There was no need to let old people and old things disturb her. Felix checked into a hotel near the base. The moment he entered the room, all the strength seemed to drain from his body. He lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. He took out his phone and turned it on. A flood of messages poured in, from his assistant, from his uncle, from Ivy, but not a single one from Clara. He remembered how, whenever he got off a plane before, the first message he received would always be from her. "Have you landed?" He used to tease her, "You always ask if I've arrived. Do you think a plane that big can just disappear?" Clara would always cover his mouth seriously and say, "Pa, pa, pa, don't say such unlucky things. As long as you've arrived, I can rest easy." Felix had always remembered those words. So, no matter where he went on business, the first thing he did after turning on his phone was to message Clara to tell her he had arrived safely. He opened their familiar chat window and typed, "I've arrived," and sent it. The red light of the unsent message was particularly glaring in the dim room. He rubbed his swollen eyes and turned off the screen. He hadn't slept in a day and a night. His eyelids grew heavy, and he could no longer fight off the exhaustion. He fell asleep. In his dream, as soon as he opened the door to the villa, he saw Clara coming out with a dish. "You're back." He rushed forward and hugged her in disbelief, apologizing over and over. "I'm sorry, it's my fault." Clara just poked his head with a smile. "You're a grown man, why are you still acting like a child? Go wash your hands and eat." At the dinner table, Clara kept putting food on his plate, every dish his favorite. They chatted about the funny things that had happened that day, laughing so hard they couldn't stop. He looked at the loving eyes of the Clara before him, and everything felt so unreal. He pinched his own cheek. It didn't hurt, so it really was a dream. It didn't matter. He hoped this dream would last a little longer, just a little longer. But dreams always end. When he opened his eyes again, there was only a dark room. He wiped the wetness from the corner of his eye and gave a bitter smile. If only he didn't have to wake up. Chapter 16. He stood at the entrance of the base and lit a cigarette. His entire face was shrouded in smoke as he paced back and forth, the ground around him littered with extinguished cigarette butts. He was torn, to go in or not to go in. He was afraid that if he went in, he would be met with Clara's cold, distant gaze. He was afraid Clara wouldn't want to see him anymore, but he also wanted to muster the courage to try one more time. What if she forgave him? Just then, he heard Clara's voice from a distance. He scrambled to hide behind a nearby corner, his heart pounding. Haha, that's the first time I've heard that one. Nice, I'll have to try that next time. Really? No problem, hahaha. It had been a long time since Felix had heard Clara laugh so happily. He remembered when he first met her, she always had a faint smile on her face that made people hesitant to approach. Later, as they got to know each other better, that smile gradually changed, from a sneer at first to a more unrestrained laugh. Every time he saw Clara let her guard down in front of him, a sense of pride would well up inside him. He loved to see her smile, but she didn't smile around him anymore. Perhaps he really shouldn't bother her anymore. He cautiously peeked out, intending to take one last look at Clara before leaving, only to see Sebastian Sullivan take off his own scarf and gently wrap it around Clara's neck. Clara stiffened at his action, instinctively about to pull away when Felix's voice rang out. Get your filthy hands off her. He rushed forward, snatched the scarf from Clara's neck, and threw it at Sebastian. He then took off his own coat and draped it over her, looking at Sebastian with a defiant pout. Who is he? Clara was stunned by Felix's sudden appearance, the shock still on her face. What are you doing here? But Felix completely ignored what Clara said and repeated his earlier question. Who is he? Sebastian, seeing Felix's hostility, extended his hand with a faint smile and introduced himself. Hello, I'm Sebastian Sullivan, Clara's colleague. Felix glanced at his outstretched hand, snorted, and pulled Clara's zipper up, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Don't use things from strangers. What if they're not clean? You could get a skin disease. Clara slapped Felix's hand away, her voice laced with annoyance. Why are you here? Felix hung his head like a child who had done something wrong, refusing to answer. Clara had to repeat the question before he finally stammered. I came to find you. Clara let out a cold laugh and started to walk away. Felix quickly grabbed her hand. You left without a word. I came all this way to find you, and you're just going to walk away without a sound? Left without a word. The phrase grated on Clara's ears. Had he come all this way just to blame her? I never left without a word. I told you I had something to discuss with you. You just missed it because you were with Ivy. Let go. Her words were like an invisible hand, squeezing Felix's heart, making it hard for him to breathe. Under Clara's gaze, he slowly released his hand. I'm sorry, I've been neglecting you lately. That apology was too late. So late that Clara had almost forgotten why she was angry in the first place. You don't need to apologize. Just go be with your fiancé. With that, she walked into the building, leaving Felix standing there, stunned. A moment later, the door opened, and Clara walked back out. Felix thought she had changed her mind, that there was still hope. He quickly grabbed her hand and said, Clara, will you come home with me? He saw Clara hold out a red envelope to him. Happy wedding. I was going to mail this to you, but now I don't have to. Felix looked at the red envelope in her hand, his nose stinging. He asked in a hoarse voice, You're not coming back? You two are getting married. It's not convenient for an outsider like me to live there, so I won't be coming back. When I return to City H, I'll move into the old Fletcher family house. Chapter 17. Clara stuffed the red envelope into Felix's hand and walked inside without a backward glance. The bright red envelope felt scorching hot in Felix's hand. Tears fell onto it, smudging the red ink. On the empty street, only his murmurs remained. Why? Why? The place in his heart that had been full was now completely empty. He wandered aimlessly down the street for a long time, staring blankly at the passing crowd. They all looked different, yet they all had faces that resembled Clara's. He felt like he was going crazy. The phone rang. He looked at it numbly. Ivy's name was flashing on the screen. He took a deep breath and answered. If you have something to say it quickly. Felix, do you hate me that much? He suddenly realized that he always said those same words whenever Clara called him. At the time, he was only thinking of keeping his distance from her, but he forgot how hurtful those words were. Seeing that Felix didn't respond, Ivy could only continue. I'm in Country M, can you come pick me up? I don't know anyone here, and I'm a little scared by myself. I'll have someone pick you up and take you back to City H. Hearing this, Ivy's resentment towards Clara intensified, but she still put on a sweet, soft voice. Felix, I miss you. Can you come pick me up, please? Felix didn't answer her question. Instead, he asked coolly, "That day, did you step on my phone on purpose?" Ivy was silent for a moment on the other end of the line, then quickly denied it. "I swear to God, I really didn't mean to. What good would it do me to break your phone? As long as it wasn't on purpose. I'll have someone pick you up in a bit." With that, Felix was about to hang up, but he heard Ivy's urgent voice. "I can help you get her back." This instantly caught Felix's attention. "What do you have in mind?" "My sister and I are family. Maybe I can get her to change her mind." Felix thought about it and felt she had a point. "Send me your location. I'll pick you up." After hanging up, Ivy's eyes were nearly consumed by jealousy. Her red nails dug into her palms. Clara Sinclair was a ghost that just wouldn't go away even after leaving. She couldn't give people a moment's peace as long as she was around. Clara Sinclair could forget about ever coming back. After picking up Ivy, Felix was silent for the whole ride, only giving a non-committal meh to whatever she said. It wasn't until she mentioned she had arranged to meet Clara at a nearby coffee shop that a flicker of emotion crossed Felix's stern face. She turned to look out the window. Her distorted face was reflected in the glass. Clara was somewhat surprised to receive a message from Ivy. She didn't want to get involved with them anymore and was about to refuse, but when she remembered that Ivy was her only remaining family in the world, she still replied, "Okay." Outside the coffee shop, Felix wanted to go in with them, but Ivy stopped him. "Felix, you can just wait for us in the car. It'll be easier for us to talk if you're not there." Felix thought she had a point, so he went back to the car, lit a cigarette, and waited quietly. As soon as Ivy pushed open the door, she saw Clara sitting in the corner. She smirked and walked over, her high heels clacking on the floor. As soon as she sat down, she complained theatrically, "Sorry, sister-in-law, for making you wait. It's all Felix's fault. We haven't seen each other in a few days, and as soon as we did, he wouldn't let me go." Clara had no patience for her act and cut her off. "If you have something to say it quickly." Felix had just said the same thing to her, and hearing Clara say it now made her even more annoyed. "I'm here to ask you to have some shame and stop meddling between me and Felix. Don't tell me you want to be a homewrecker. I'm not interested in what's between you two. I only see him as a younger brother." Ivy sneered at her words. "A younger brother you want to sleep with? Don't think I don't know who wrote those love letters." That sentence extinguished the last bit of sisterly affection Clara had for her. She grabbed her bag and walked out. "From now on, you are not my sister. And you too, don't show your faces in front of me again. You disgust me." Ivy smiled and stirred the coffee in her cup. Slap, slap. She raised her hand and slapped her own delicate face twice. Her cheeks instantly swelled and turned red, leaving 5 clear finger marks. She sat in the passenger seat, sobbing quietly, her face streaked with tears as she cried to Felix, "Felix, my sister hit me." Chapter 18. Felix paid no attention to her words, only asking eagerly, "Is Clara willing to come back?" Ivy couldn't believe Felix was so indifferent to her. She stared at him in disbelief, forgetting to even wipe her tears. Felix just repeated his question. "Well, what did Clara say?" She said she's not willing." At those words, Felix slumped back in his seat. Seeing this, Ivy could no longer maintain her composure and demanded, "Don't you even care about me? I'm your fiancé. Clara hit me, and you don't care. Who's more important to you in the end?" Felix didn't spare her a single glance, just said coolly, "Clara's not that kind of person." On the way back to the hotel, neither of them said another word. Felix got Ivy a room next to his. After seeing her to her room, he was about to leave when she grabbed his arm. "Felix, can you stay with me tonight?" Felix pushed her hand away. "Some other time." With that, he went to the room next door without a backward glance. He opened the diary and read it over and over, from the first page to the last. Every time he saw those final words, a pang of pain shot through his heart. He sighed wearily, and the diary slipped from his hand, hitting the floor with a thud. He picked it up gingerly, brushing off the dust, and accidentally discovered a hidden compartment in the leather cover. He carefully pried it open with a key, and a slightly yellowed letter fell out. Some of the ink had faded, and it was clear it was quite old. Felix opened it. The first thing he saw were the words, "To Felix Fletcher." He read it word by word, and realized it was a letter from a young Clara. The letter told him not to be afraid, that she had beaten up all the bad guys, and that she would always be behind him, protecting him. At the end, in small letters, it said, "If you feel like someone is following you, Don't be scared, it's me, hee hee. The childish handwriting confirmed the deepest secret in Felix's heart. With trembling hands, he picked up his phone and called his assistant. Check if it was Ivy Sinclair who fought for me back then. The minutes ticked by, and his anxiety grew. He paced back and forth in the room, trying to calm himself down. Just as the ashtray was overflowing with cigarette butts, the assistant finally called back. I checked, sir. It wasn't Miss Ivy Sinclair who fought for you. It was Miss Clara Sinclair. He hung up and slammed his fist on the table. Shards of glass dug into his hand, but he didn't feel the pain. Years ago, Ivy had come to him and recounted the story of how she had stood up for him as a child, word for word. Although he had his doubts, he remembered she was his uncle's adopted daughter and chose to believe her, accepting her conditions. If only he had bothered to investigate back then, things wouldn't have ended up like this. All those years, Clara had been silently protecting him from behind, and he had mistaken her for someone else. If she knew Ivy had impersonated her, taking credit for her actions to marry the man she loved, how wronged she must have felt thinking of Clara's face, he grabbed his coat and ran out of the room like a madman. Chapter 19. Felix burst into the base, ignoring the stares of others as he pushed open door after door, searching for Clara. Susan saw him and shouted sternly, "Mr. Fletcher, what do you think you're doing?" He came up to Susan and asked anxiously, "Where's Clara?" Clara went out. Before Susan could finish, Felix had already stormed out the door and run off. He ran through street after street, through alley after alley, but he couldn't find Clara. He leaned against a wall, panting, and murmured to himself, "God, I'm begging you, just help me this one time." As if heaven had heard his plea, a familiar voice sounded from the end of the alley just a second later. "Excuse me, are you satisfied with the government's measures after this disaster?" He followed the sound, his heart pounding with every step, until that familiar face appeared before him and his restless heart finally calmed down. Clara was holding a microphone, bending over, seriously interviewing a member of the public. In front of the camera, she shone brightly, as if he had gone back in time several years, standing on the sidelines watching her work just like this. Back then, Clara was a rookie reporter. Her expression was always serious during interviews, her body tense and stiff in front of the camera. Sometimes, she would even misspeak due to nervousness, causing an interview mishap. To help her relax, Felix would always stand by with a small notebook, drawing her interview content as comics. Looking at those little stories, Clara's tense mood would ease, and the interviews would go much more smoothly. Seeing her happily bouncing over to him after an interview, Felix would always find himself smiling unconsciously. But now, she stood before the camera with grace and confidence, her movements fluid and natural. She no longer needed his help, just as she no longer needed him. He felt as if Clara was right there, within reach, yet he couldn't grasp her. It was as if an invisible barrier separated them, and they were drifting further and further apart. How he longed to rush up and hug her, to ask her if it was really her back then. But he knew how much Clara despised him now, so he could only suppress the urge in his heart and stand by, waiting for her to finish work. That's all for today's interview. See you next time. As the cameraman shouted, "That's a wrap," Felix shot forward, grabbed Clara's hand, and asked urgently, "Back then, it was you who saved me, right?" Clara was bewildered by his sudden appearance, looking at the man before her with confusion. Felix took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. "The person who followed me, took care of me when I was a kid. Was that you?" Clara didn't know why he was bringing up the past, but she didn't want to have anything more to do with him, so she prevaricated. "No, you've got the wrong person." "No, I haven't, I saw the letter." Clara's hand, which was packing up the equipment, paused for a moment. Seeing his persistent gaze, she sighed. "It's all in the past. It doesn't matter if it was me or not." He pulled her into his arms, his voice choked with sobs. "I'm sorry, I was too late. I should have recognized you sooner. I'm so sorry." Clara struggled, pushing Felix away with all her might, her small face filled with anger. "I am your sister-in-law, please have some self-respect. Don't forget, you have a fiancé." Chapter 20. In all these years, this was the first time Clara had referred to herself as his sister-in-law. The word struck Felix's heart. He quickly explained, "She impersonated you. She said she was the one who secretly protected me and stood up for me back then. My relationship with her was just out of gratitude. I don't love her. Clara watched him try to justify himself, pushing all the blame onto Ivy, and let out a cold laugh. You could have found out the truth if you had just checked, but you didn't. With that, she picked up her equipment and was about to get in the car, but Felix blocked her way. He looked at her seriously. Clara, let's get married. Hearing this, Clara almost laughed out loud. What did he take her for? A devoted dog he could summon and dismiss at will? Felix, I don't love you anymore. Without a second thought, she pulled the car door shut and told the driver to go. In that instant, the coldness in her eyes was like 1,000 silver needles piercing Felix's heart. He stood there, stunned. The car's exhaust fumes billowed into his face, making him cough. He thought, this smoke is so choking, it's making me cry. He watched the van gradually disappear from sight and wiped the tears from his eyes. Felix had just returned to the hotel when Ivy knocked on his door. She waved her phone, which showed her chat history with her adoptive father. She looked at him with a sweet smile. Felix, Dad is asking when we're going back to get married. He looked at the instigator before him, thinking how this all started because of her. The loneliness in his heart was instantly replaced by rage. Back then, was it really you who saved me? Ivy hadn't expected Felix to bring up the past. A flicker of panic crossed her eyes. Yes it was. What's wrong, Felix? To this day, she was still lying to him. Did she think he was so stupid that she could just play him for a fool? I had someone investigate. The person who saved me back then was clearly Clara Sinclair. The delicate smile on Ivy's face completely collapsed, replaced by a look of terror. No, it's not true, it was really me. Enough, how long are you going to lie to me? Felix's roar made Ivy tremble, and even her sobs became quieter. Let's break up. The wedding is off. No, Felix, I just love you too much. I've liked you since we were kids, but your eyes were always on Clara, so I lied to you. Please forgive me, I won't do it again. She knelt at Felix's feet, clutching his pant leg and begging for mercy, her face a mess of tears and snot. But Felix's face showed no emotion. He just took out his phone and made a call. Send someone to the Hilton now, take her away. By the time the assistant and driver arrived, Ivy was still crying and shouting, but Felix didn't spare her a single glance. Back in his room, his long fingers flew across the keyboard, quickly composing a social media post and sending it out. After that, he let out a slow breath, leaned back on the sofa, and closed his eyes to rest. The search terms for Ivy Sinclair, Clara Sinclair, and Felix Fletcher continued to rise. Soon, that post was reposted by tens of thousands of people. The topic was clicked on constantly, and their names occupied the top 3 spots on the trending list. Former CP breaks up. The news of Felix and Ivy's breakup shook the entire city overnight. Chapter 21. The news spread like wildfire throughout their circle. Ivy, looking at the news on her social media, gritted her teeth in anger. She sent a barrage of hateful messages to Clara. Clara Sinclair, you cheap tart, why do you always have to steal my men? If you're so desperate for a man, I'll find you one, just stop throwing yourself at Felix. A home-wrecking trollop, like you should go to hell. They were biological sisters, yet they were at each other's throats over a man. Clara found the messages on her phone laughable. She felt more and more that the two of them were a perfect match, both equally insane. She took a screenshot, blocked Ivy's contact, and then sent it to Felix with the message, "Control your fiancé." Seeing the familiar profile picture pop up on his screen, Felix sat up excitedly. He looked at the message from Clara, cursed Ivy for being an idiot, and then began to explain. I've already broken up with her. Don't worry, I won't let her bother you again. Can you give me another chance? I really know I was wrong. I won't give up. I will definitely win you back. The first 2 messages went through smoothly, but when he sent the last one, the red exclamation mark appeared again. Felix, however, saw this as a good start. At least he could get 2 messages through now. He then opened his social media, went to his photo album, which was full of pictures of him and Clara over the years. He chose one he liked, posted it, and captioned it, "Clara Sinclair, let's start over. I love you." If the news of his sudden breakup with Ivy was a tsunami, this post was like a meteor hitting the earth, shocking everyone to their core. Josie screenshotted the post and sent it to Clara. OMG, what have you two been hiding from me? What is going on? Tell me now. Are you two together now? Faced with Josie's barrage of messages, Clara frowned and replied with just 2 words, "We're not." She opened the picture, looked at the post, and muttered, "Idiot." Compared to Josie's excitement, Clara was remarkably calm. Friends who saw the post also started messaging Clara, trying to get some inside scoop. For the first time in a long time, Clara posted on her own feed, "I have no relationship with Felix Fletcher. He is just my younger brother." When he received a screenshot of her post from a friend, his heart ached with a bitter taste. It was okay. He believed his sincerity would eventually move her. From that day on, it was as if they had returned to their old ways. He followed Clara around every day, just like before, accompanying her on interviews and at work. He knew Clara didn't want to talk to him right now, so he always kept a small distance, silently watching over her. Clara had privately told Felix to stop pestering her and to leave, but Felix seemed not to understand, continuing to follow her. Gradually, she grew tired of it and stopped paying him any mind. As long as he didn't interfere with her work, she let him be. But after a while of this, the colleagues at the base began to gossip about their relationship. This feeling of being constantly watched annoyed Clara immensely. Even Sebastian Sullivan asked, "Clara, what's your relationship with Mr. Fletcher?" Clara rubbed her furrowed brow and said impatiently, "He's my younger brother." Unlike the others, Sebastian didn't press further, just smiled. "In that case, can I pursue you?" Chapter 22. "Sorry, I'm not looking for a relationship right now." Sebastian took the rejection without any sign of anger, simply nodding. "Okay, I'll wait." After that day, Clara's little entourage grew from 1 to 2. Sebastian began to openly pursue her. Outside of work, he was almost always by her side. He even prepared bento boxes for lunch and ate with her. Felix quickly noticed something was amiss. Once, while Clara was out on an interview, he confronted Sebastian, trying to assert his claim. "Clara is my person. Stay away from her. Don't think I don't know what you're up to. I suggest you be smart and back off. I'm the only one who truly understands her and loves her." Faced with Felix's provocation, Sebastian maintained his gentlemanly demeanor, but the smirk on his face revealed his derision. "But Clara said you're just her brother." His words instantly deflated half of Felix's bravado, but he still stared at him stubbornly, refusing to back down. Sebastian was equally unyielding. The two of them locked eyes, a silent battle of wills. A few minutes later, Sebastian proposed, "Let's have a fair competition. Let Clara choose for herself." Having been by Clara's side for so many years, Felix didn't believe he would be replaced by some newcomer. He smiled confidently, "Fine, fair competition." And so, the two of them began to one-up each other. If one brought a bento box, the other would bring steak. If one sent 99 roses, the other would send 999. The once professional news base was thrown into chaos by their antics, and I couldn't get my own work done. I sent Felix a message, asking him to have dinner with me that evening to draw a clear line once and for all. As for Sebastian, I would explain things to him at work tomorrow. I trusted he was a reasonable person. Felix was ecstatic when he received the message, thinking his efforts had finally paid off. He meticulously prepared for the date, from head to toe, constantly checking the time, eagerly awaiting the evening. However, before the date, he received a message from Ivy. A prenatal checkup report was displayed on his phone screen. "Felix, I'm pregnant." Felix enlarged the photo, examining it over and over. He even had it professionally authenticated and found no signs of editing. He was shocked, trying to recall their past interactions. In his memory, although he and Ivy were engaged, he had never crossed any lines with her. Let alone getting her pregnant, he didn't even know what she looked like without her clothes on. As he was puzzling over it, he suddenly remembered a banquet where he had had a few too many drinks. He had felt dizzy and weak, and when he woke up, he was in a bed with Ivy. His head was splitting. He tried to recall what had happened the night before, but he couldn't remember anything. But he saw that Ivy's clothes were intact, so he didn't think much of it. Could it have been that time? Find out who Ivy has been in contact with recently. After calling his assistant, he ignored Ivy's message and continued to adjust his tie in the mirror. There was only half an hour left until the date. Felix was about to go to the flower shop to buy a bouquet of Clara's favorite roses. Just as he arrived outside the shop, his phone rang again. He saw the flashing name on the screen, hesitated for a moment, and answered. "Hello, Uncle." Chapter 23. "I watched you grow up, you kid. How can you be such a bastard now? What did Ivy ever do to you? You won't take responsibility for her, and now you've disappeared. Get your ass back here now." His uncle didn't give Felix a chance to react, unleashing a torrent of abuse. Felix, remembering that Ivy had been a filial daughter-in-law to his uncle over the years, decided to save her some face and didn't mention her deceit. "Uncle, it's impossible between Ivy and me. I have something to do, so I won't be back for a while." An endless silence fell on the other end of the line. After a long moment, his uncle said "good" 3 times in a row, his voice choked as he mumbled. "You've grown your wings now, you don't even respect your uncle anymore." "Ah, I'm getting old, so old. The kids don't listen anymore. You're not the little boy who used to chase after me calling uncle anymore." His uncle's words left Felix at a loss for a response. He could only repeat, "No, uncle, that's not what I mean." In the end, his uncle let out a cold snort and said angrily, "If you still consider me your uncle, you'll get back here right now. Otherwise, you don't have to ever set foot in my house again." Over the years, his brother and parents had passed away one after another, leaving his uncle as his only living relative. But his uncle's health was also failing, so Felix cherished this last bit of family connection. Helplessly, he had no choice but to book the next available flight that night. He bought a bouquet of red roses and went to the base, intending to give them to Clara and explain everything in person. But Clara was out on another interview. He could only leave the roses on her desk and send her a message. "I'm sorry, something came up and I have to go back to City H. Wait for me." By the time Clara saw the message, an hour had passed. "Don't come back. Let's not see each other again. That's all I wanted to talk to you about tonight anyway." When Felix saw Clara's reply, the unease he had been feeling returned. He was about to explain, but he heard the flight attendant's gentle voice. "Sir, the plane is about to take off. Please turn off your phone." Felix could only delete the half-written message and reply with 2 words, "Wait for me." Clara looked at Felix's reply with a calm heart, put her phone in her pocket, and continued to work. After landing, Felix opened his phone to find Clara's chat window still silent. His nose stung, but he stubbornly typed out a message and sent it. "I've landed. It's cold in City H today too. Are you done with work?" Every message was met with silence. He stared at his phone screen helplessly and walked out of the exit with his suitcase. Ivy appeared out of nowhere and threw herself at him in a hug. "Felix, I knew you'd come back for me." Felix pushed her away in disgust and wiped his hands with a handkerchief. "I came back this time to explain things to Uncle. Ivy, it's over between us." With that, he left Ivy standing there, still tapping away at his phone. "I'm about to get in the car. What are you doing?" Ivy watched Felix's retreating back, her fists clenching until her nails dug into her flesh. Only then did she calm down slightly. She looked up and saw a glint of light in a corner not far away. A knowing smile spread across her face. "Felix Fletcher, your wife can only be me." Chapter 24. Felix met his uncle at the restaurant. Ivy had arrived before him and was sobbing on his uncle's lap. "HMPH, so you finally decided to show up, Uncle." "Don't call me uncle, I don't have a nephew like you," Ivy spoke up, defending him. "Dad, don't blame Felix." Hearing this, his uncle's anger only intensified. He looked at Ivy with a look of disappointment. "HMPH, and you're still defending him? He did such a despicable thing, and you're still protecting him." You hearing this, Ivy lowered her head and pouted. "All right, Dad. Don't say any more." His uncle, doting on his daughter, saw her like this and shook his head helplessly, sighing, "Things being as they are, you two should just get married." "No," Felix's immediate refusal made his uncle's recently softened expression turn ferocious again. He struck Felix with his cane. "Ivy is carrying your child, and you don't want to take responsibility. Do you even have any respect for me as your uncle?" Felix let out a muffled grunt from the blow, gritting his teeth to endure the pain. "You will always be my uncle. If you have any respect for me as your uncle, then get married. I can't marry her." "Are you trying to kill me with anger?" His uncle's chest heaved violently from the agitation, and he gasped for breath. Ivy rushed to his side and patted his back. Felix's lips pursed. "I will investigate this matter thoroughly. If the child is mine, I will take responsibility. But I can't marry her. The one I love is Clara Sinclair." Hearing this, Ivy's heart skipped a beat. She quickly argued, "The baby in my belly is yours. Don't you believe me?" His uncle's eyes filled with pain as he pointed a trembling finger at Felix. How can you do this to Frederick? Aren't you afraid he'll come to haunt your dreams at night and question you? Felix looked down at the floor and took a deep breath. Back then, Clara was originally supposed to marry me. It was just a misunderstanding. Now, we're just correcting that mistake. He saw his uncle struggling to breathe and felt a pang of guilt. He bowed deeply to him. Uncle, I'm sorry. With that, he turned to leave. Ivy, seeing this, asked with a tearful voice. Felix, what am I to you? Felix turned his head slightly and said coolly, I only see you as a sister. I did in the past, I do now, and I will in the future. He walked out amidst his uncle's angry shouts and Ivy's wails. He looked up at the clear sky and felt a sense of relief. Some things weren't as hard to say as he had thought. It was a pity he had realized it too late. Ivy watched his disappearing figure, gritting her teeth in anger. Felix Fletcher, since you are unjust, don't blame me for being unrighteous. The person by your side can only be me. She dialed a number on her phone. Hello, I agree to the interview. The sooner, the better. Chapter 25. Felix returned to his familiar home for the first time in a while. Looking at the furnishings, he felt a sense of desolation. He took a shower, lay on the bed, and opened the pinned chat window. I'm home, have you arrived? He knew he wouldn't get a reply from Clara, so he turned off the screen, planning to deal with the Ivy situation before returning to Country M to find her. Then, there would be no one to bother them. However, just as he was about to ask his assistant about the investigation, a message from the assistant popped up first. Mr. Fletcher, take a look at this. Link after link, the headlines made the situation clear. Shocking ex-couple embrace at airport, rumored to be back together. Popular dancing starlet reveals pregnancy. Families meet to secretly discuss wedding. Fletcher Group's good news imminent. With every link Felix opened, his face grew darker. In the videos, Ivy sat before the camera, shyly talking about her pregnancy. When a reporter asked about the father, she covered her mouth and giggled. I've only ever had one boyfriend. What do you think? Coupled with the photos of them hugging at the airport and the three of them having dinner at the restaurant, it all but confirmed that he was the father of her child. He checked his social media, and sure enough, the internet was in an uproar. His, Ivy's, and Clara's names were at the top of the trending list again. Oh my God, didn't they break up? The woman is pregnant. What a huge scoop. I knew they were faking it. Pretending to break up so people would leave them alone. That's my ship. Well, now some people can finally give up. They're the real, legitimate couple. The assistant, having learned from past experience, had already arranged to have the posts taken down as soon as he saw them. But the other party was clearly determined. For every $1,000,000 he spent, she would spend $2, even hiring a large number of bots to keep the topic trending. The situation was at a stalemate. At his wit's end, the assistant had no choice but to forward everything to Felix. Mr. Fletcher, we can't get these trending topics down. What should we do? Felix instantly realized this was Ivy's doing. His first reaction was to explain to Clara, afraid she would misunderstand. But he didn't know that Josie had already forwarded everything to her the moment it started trending. She looked at the photos of the two of them and sneered, feeling like they were a couple of clowns, and she was just a pawn in their love game. Just as she was about to reply, she received Felix's explanatory message. The wall of text made Clara lose all desire to read. You don't need to explain to me. He saw her message and stood there, phone in hand, frozen. If she had even cursed at him a little, he would have felt there was still hope between them. But now, she wouldn't even read his explanation. The last glimmer of hope in his heart was extinguished. No, this couldn't be happening. He dialed Clara's number, but the cold, automated voice answered again. His heart, which had been hanging by a thread, finally died. Clara was really done with him. Chapter 26. Felix found Ivy and roared at her, his eyes bloodshot. Why would you do this, Ivy? Seeing his furious state, laughed instead of getting angry, her eyes full of mockery. Felix Fletcher, you've finally come to see me. If you had just agreed to marry me sooner, I wouldn't have had to resort to this. Unable to contain his rage, Felix slapped her to the ground. But Ivy only laughed more wildly. Ha ha ha, Felix Fletcher, now you either marry me, or I'll die and you can watch. And then you can wait for your precious Clara Sinclair to be drowned in public opinion. He looked at her, lying on the ground, laughing maniacally, and a chill ran down his spine. You're a maniac? Ha ha, I am a maniac, why does she get everything? Why? Felix got back in his car and slammed his fist on the steering wheel in frustration. How's the investigation going? Mr. Fletcher, we haven't made much progress yet. Investigate at all costs, I want to know everything about her. The assistant on the other end of the line was so scared by Felix's roar that he almost dropped his phone. He could only agree profusely. After hanging up, he began to investigate all of Ivy's recent locations, all the strangers she had contacted, and her bank statements and spending records. He worked for 3 days and 3 nights without sleep. Felix wasn't idle either. He asked everyone he knew about Ivy, from her time abroad to her recent return, trying to find any clues. These few days felt like an eternity. He looked much older and more haggard. When the assistant brought him the investigation file, he was sitting on the sofa, staring blankly ahead, his cheeks sunken, a shadow of his former self. Mr. Fletcher, we found something. At these words, a glimmer of light finally appeared in Felix's dull eyes. He snatched the file from the assistant and began to read it carefully. We checked Miss Sinclair's spending records and found that she recently made several large expenditures at a certain club. We talked to a manager and a salesperson we know there, and they told us that Miss Sinclair has been seeing a male model named Grant Kane from the club. They've been seen together frequently. We then checked Miss Sinclair's hotel records and found that she had booked a room at the Four Seasons for Grant Kane. The room is still being paid for, and our people who were staking it out saw Grant Kane coming and going. Later, we found Grant Kane's friends, and they told us that he's been bragging recently about cuckolding a tycoon. He not only slept with his fiancée, but the baby is also his. He said the tycoon is his pickup man. As the assistant spoke, his voice grew quieter. He watched Felix closely, afraid he would explode, but Felix's face showed no reaction. He just flipped through the file, looking at the pictures of Ivy, flushed and kissing Grant Kane on the street, nestled in his arms, looking at their intimate photos, his eyes full of mockery. Mr. Fletcher, should we buy these photos and have someone warn Grant Kane? The assistant, unsure of his intentions, asked tentatively. After reading, Felix handed the file back to the assistant, a playful glint in his eye. Put these online. For the next 3 days, I don't want it to drop from the #1 trending spot. Chapter 27. The assistant went to carry out the order. As soon as the information was posted, someone started trying to take it down. But the assistant, having learned from experience, quickly countered their moves. And so, for 3 days, the post remained online. Ivy's reputation was completely ruined. She became a pariah, a street rat everyone wanted to beat. Even her adoptive father, furious with her, had returned abroad and was threatening to disown her. From a high and mighty dancing starlet, a miss of the Fletcher family, she had plummeted to a cheating, lying trollop who had faked a pregnancy to trap a man. After settling everything, Felix flew back to Country M and went to the base, ready to explain everything to Clara. He placed the evidence he had gathered in Clara's hands. Clara, this time, it really has nothing to do with me. But Clara didn't even open the file. She handed it back to him, untouched. Felix Fletcher, I don't like you anymore. Can you please stop bothering me? Felix's eyes turned red. He clutched the file in his hand, his voice laced with a sob. Clara, I'm sorry, I really know I was wrong. If you come looking for me again, I will disappear completely. He watched her retreating back, and a wave of fear washed over him. He believed she would do as she said. He was afraid that the Clara he had just found would disappear again. He was afraid he would never see her again. He didn't want to experience that kind of pain again. For the next few days, he was unusually quiet. He would follow Clara from a distance every day, accompanying her to work, to meals, on walks, as if she were still by his side. But every time Clara turned around, he would hide, trying not to be seen. He thought, if she doesn't see me, she won't be angry, right? But he had underestimated Clara's decisiveness. He forgot that once she set her mind to something, she would see it through to the end. That same unyielding stubbornness had once deeply attracted Felix, but when it was directed at him, he thought that perhaps it was a quality she could do without. That evening, Clara was strolling down the street, and Felix was following behind her. She stopped, he stopped. She walked, he walked. When she reached a corner, she suddenly turned around and saw Felix, flustered and trying to find a place to hide under the streetlights. She smiled faintly. This is as far as you go. Don't come back again. Felix felt that this was truly the end. His voice hitched and Clara's figure blurred before his eyes. For once, he managed to say, "Okay." They went their separate ways. Snow began to fall from the sky, slowly landing on the ground and disappearing. "Felix Fletcher," Clara's shout reached Felix's ears. He cursed under his breath. "Damn it," he rushed in her direction, only to see a black car speeding away. His intuition told him Clara was in that car, that she was in danger. He got in his car and gave chase, weaving through traffic until he reached an abandoned factory. The area around the factory was pitch black and eerily silent, except for a faint glimmer of light coming from a warehouse in the distance. He picked up a wooden plank and cautiously crept towards the light, trying not to make a sound. Chapter 28. Inside the factory, several large men were staring at Clara with greedy eyes, their lecherous gazes roaming over her body, making one's skin crawl. Clara had been drugged and her consciousness was fading. She couldn't let herself fall asleep, so she bit her tongue. The sharp pain barely kept her awake. She felt her clothes being torn, a rough hand touching her exposed skin. She struggled to resist, but the drug was taking effect. Her eyelids grew heavy and she finally passed out. When she opened her eyes again, she was surrounded by white. Sebastian leaned over her, his voice excited. "Clara, you're awake? Where am I?" "This is the hospital. Do you remember what happened last night?" She shook her head. "I only remember being kidnapped. I don't remember anything else." "You were kidnapped last night. It was Felix Fletcher who called the police and saved you. When the police arrived, they brought you both to the hospital." "Where's Felix?" Sebastian's hesitation made the unease in Clara's heart grow. She asked again, more urgently, "Where's Felix?" With Sebastian's help, she went to the window of another hospital room. She raised her hand and pressed it against the cold glass, sobbing uncontrollably. The last time she had looked at him through a window, he was in the yard, laughing and talking with Ivy. This time, he was lying on the hospital bed, hooked up to tubes, his face peaceful. In the days that followed, Clara would visit Felix's room every day. She took care of him just like before, wiping his body, talking to him about the little things that happened in her day. She remembered when he had been injured while accompanying her on an interview, she had taken care of him just like this. Except that time, every word she said was met with a response from Felix. Now, the only response was the beeping of cold machines. After a thorough investigation, the police quickly arrested the men who had attacked her. They confessed to their crimes and revealed the mastermind, Ivy Sinclair. They had taken Ivy's money to ruin Clara's reputation, but Felix's appearance had disrupted their plan. In the struggle, one of them had pulled out a knife and stabbed Felix in the side, a fatal blow. The police began a massive manhunt for Ivy, determined to bring her to justice. After leaving the police station, Clara went to Felix's room again and placed a bouquet of red roses by his bed. She wiped his body as she murmured, "I don't actually like red roses. I only like them because you do. I really wanted to stab you a couple of times, to ask you why you treated me like that back then. But when I saw you lying in that hospital bed, I was so scared. So scared you would actually die. Felix Fletcher, I don't hate you anymore, but I won't love you again either." As her last words fell, a tear traced a path down Felix's cheek. The fluctuating heart rate on the monitor flatlined. Doctor, the large hospital room was filled with the frantic movements of doctors and the sound of Clara's cries. 1 year later, under a misty sky with a light drizzle, Clara, dressed in black, stood before the graves. She placed a bouquet of yellow chrysanthemums and a bouquet of red roses. "Mom, Dad, Felix, I've come to see you. A DD oi 88 MLM.